Training Day. Training Day is not just another cop movie, it's a descent into hell, a face-off between innocence and corruption in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Los Angeles. And at the heart of it all, an idealistic cop facing a veteran consumed by crime. Jake Hoyt, played by Ethan Hawke, is a young, ambitious cop who has to go through a one-day evaluation with Alonzo Harris, a seasoned detective played by Denzel Washington. What he doesn't know is that he's stepping into a world of manipulation, drugs, and violence. Alonzo, with his charisma and questionable methods, drags Jake into a spiral of corruption that forces him to question his principles. The ending? It won't leave you unscathed. Jake, caught by the truth and his own conscience, rebels against Alonzo and puts an end to his tyranny in a radical way. The film takes an unpredictable, violent turn, reminding us that justice is never as simple as we think. With a box office of over $100 million and Denzel Washington's unforgettable performance, Training Day became a must-see. Winning the Oscar for Best Actor in 2002 crowned Denzel, solidifying his legendary status. A game-changing role that marked a generation. Training Day goes far beyond a typical police thriller. It's an exploration of the human soul, corruption, and moral choices. Unforgettable and shocking, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, unsure where good ends and evil begins. Malcolm X. Malcolm X doesn't just tell the life story of a man, it explores the struggle of a soul against an unforgiving system. Directed by Spike Lee, the film follows the tumultuous journey of Malcolm X, played by an astonishing Denzel Washington. From a young criminal to a civil rights icon, his story is marked by a radical transformation and a search for meaning in a world rife with racism. His spiritual and political journey, from prison to his conversion to Islam, shapes his identity as a revolutionary leader. And the ending? It's impactful, unforgettable. The assassination of Malcolm X isn't just a tragic event, but a moment that leaves you reflecting coldly on what the fight for freedom can cost. It's an emotional punch that plunges us into the darkness of social struggle. Though Malcolm X didn't break box office records, grossing $73 million on a $33 million budget, its impact was profound. Denzel Washington's performance, so realistic that Malcolm X's family compared him to the spirit of the leader, earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor in 1993, a prize he truly deserved. Malcolm X marked a turning point in Denzel's career, proving he was much more than just an actor. He became one of the greatest talents of his generation, capable of transcending cinema to touch history itself. Man on Fire. Man on Fire is more than just an action movie. From the very first scene, it grabs you by the gut with an explosion of vengeance, pain, and emotion, led by a Denzel who transcends the role. The story follows John Creasy, a former CIA agent and mercenary devastated by his past, who finds a chance for redemption by becoming a bodyguard for Peta, an innocent young girl played by Dakota Fanning. At first, Creasy is distant, broken, almost incapable of feeling, but over time a strong bond forms, and he begins to see in Peta a piece of humanity he thought he had lost forever. Then, the tragedy strikes. Peta is kidnapped. That's when everything changes. Creasy, calm and measured until then, becomes an unstoppable force of vengeance, willing to do anything to find her. Explosions, torture, threats. He stops at nothing to destroy the cartel responsible for this crime, turning Mexico into his own battleground. The film, with a $70 million budget, grossed over $130 million worldwide. But beyond its commercial success, Man on Fire became a cult film due to its emotional intensity. Denzel Washington, with his poignant performance, proves he can also play vulnerable, deeply human characters, far from just action heroes. His bond with Dakota Fanning, both credible and heartbreaking, makes their duo one of the most memorable in cinema. The film doesn't just give us scenes of pure vengeance. It reminds us that even in the face of horror, redemption and love can emerge. And Man on Fire marked a generation of action movie fans, with Creasy becoming an iconic anti-hero, a film where action meets emotion, and Denzel Washington once again proves his status as a cinema icon. Glory. When history is written by the victors, some fighters remain in the shadows. Glory comes to correct that injustice by telling the little-known story of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, one of the first units of African-American soldiers during the Civil War. Inspired by true events, Glory tells the story of the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, one of the first battalions composed of African-American soldiers during the Civil War. Led by Colonel Robert Shaw, played by Matthew Broderick, these men must not only face the enemy on the battlefield, but also the racism within their own ranks. And among them is Trip, a rebellious soldier, defiant and deeply scarred by the oppression. Denzel Washington gives a heartbreaking performance, bringing to life a character both hardened and profoundly human. The scene that marked everyone? Trip receiving lashes, his back torn open, but refusing to lower his eyes. And that tear running down his face, pure Denzel, a cinematic moment etched forever. With a budget of $18 million, Glory grossed nearly $27 million, but its true impact is measured elsewhere, in the history of cinema and the recognition of these soldiers' struggle. And for the awards, Denzel Washington won his first Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in 1990, a historic moment. This film changed his career, proving he wasn't just an up-and-coming star, but a top-tier actor capable of delivering unforgettable performances. Remember the Titans. There are sports movies, and then there are those that talk about much more than that. Remember the Titans is the story of a team, but above all, it's a fight against segregation. Based on a true story, this film takes us to Virginia in the 1970s, a time when racial segregation was still prevalent. In this explosive context, the T.C. Williams High School decides to form an integrated football team for the first time. At the helm, Coach Herman Boone, played by Denzel Washington, must unite black and white players in a country where everything seems designed to keep them apart. Boone is tough, demanding, sometimes ruthless, but he knows it's not just about football. He pushes his players beyond their limits, teaching them to fight together and to overcome their prejudices. The message is clear. On the field, there's no color, only teammates. And the team? They win everything. But more importantly, they prove that unity is stronger than hate. With a budget of $30 million, Remember the Titans was a global hit, grossing over $136 million. But it's true, impact lies elsewhere. This film became a reference, still shown in schools, sports teams, and even certain institutions for its lessons in leadership and tolerance. And Denzel Washington? He carries the film on his shoulders, delivering a performance that's both inspiring and charismatic. This role cemented his image as an actor capable of portraying iconic figures, leaders who leave a lasting impact. American Gangster. Gangsters in cinema, we know them, but American Gangster isn't just a mafia story. It's a masterclass on power, ambition, and corruption. Inspired by real events, American Gangster follows Frank Lucas, a small-time crime lieutenant who, after the death of his boss, takes control of the heroin trade in Harlem. But Lucas is no ordinary gangster. He's methodical, disciplined, and ruthless. He creates a drug empire, importing his product directly from Vietnam, bypassing the Italian mafia, and flooding the streets of New York with his ultra-pure heroin, known as Blue Magic. Against him stands an incorruptible cop, Richie Roberts, played by Russell Crowe, who lives only to bring down this new kingpin. This isn't just a battle between law and crime, but a clash between two opposing philosophies. A criminal who applies capitalist principles better than businessmen, and a cop who refuses to compromise in a world ravaged by corruption. The film's ending is equally striking. After being betrayed by his associates and losing everything, Frank Lucas surrenders, making the decision to cooperate with the authorities. A choice that marks the end of his reign, but also a new beginning for his character, who faces the consequences of his actions. With a $100 million budget, American Gangster grossed over $266 million worldwide. The film was critically acclaimed and earned 2 Oscar nominations, including one for Best Supporting Actress for Ruby Dee. Denzel Washington's performance? Simply magnificent. He plays Frank Lucas with a perfect blend of class and menace, a man who can offer you a charming smile before shooting you in the street. This performance solidified his status as a legend, proving he could play both heroes and criminals with the same intensity. Flight. Flight isn't just about a spectacular plane crash. It's not merely a story of courage in the face of disaster. No, Flight is a journey inside the human soul, a whirlwind of guilt, denial, and redemption. The story focuses on Whip Whitaker, a seasoned airline pilot played by Denzel Washington. During a particularly risky flight, Whip displays exceptional courage and manages to save nearly all passengers from a doomed plane. But here's the twist. The pilot wasn't exactly who he seemed to be. Beneath his heroic persona lies a man who battles alcohol and drug addiction, struggling with his demons even in the moments of greatest triumph. The film takes us through Whip's fight to maintain his dignity, despite his personal chaos. And the crash? It's not the real danger. The true danger lies in his own life, with a recklessness that could cost him everything. The film's ending? It leaves us on the edge, forcing us to question the nature of heroism and personal redemption. Whip ultimately admits his faults in court, choosing the difficult path of truth. With a budget of $31 million, Flight grossed over $161 million, and Washington's performance was nothing short of brilliant, earning him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, a performance that proved he could take on incredibly complex characters with layers of vulnerability and strength. The Equalizer. The Equalizer tells the story of Robert McCall, a former secret agent who now leads a quiet life in Boston. One day, he crosses paths with Terry, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, a young prostitute who is a victim of violence. This encounter will push McCall to come out of retirement and use his skills to protect the innocent. McCall becomes a relentless vigilante, using his brilliant strategic mind and combat skills to take down a criminal network and avenge those who cannot defend themselves. What sets The Equalizer apart from other action films is the soul of its protagonist. McCall is not motivated by personal vengeance but by a deep sense of justice. He is an ordinary man who decides to risk everything to defend the weak, becoming a symbol of the fight against injustice. With a budget of $55 million, The Equalizer grossed $192 million at the global box office. The film achieved great commercial success and allowed Denzel Washington to prove that he could portray a badass action hero while still remaining profoundly human. The film led to a series of sequels, solidifying McCall's status as one of the most iconic modern-day vigilantes in cinema. Denzel Washington skillfully blended strength and vulnerability, delivering a captivating performance that left a lasting impression. And you? Which Denzel role impacted you the most? Drop a comment and subscribe for more cinematic stories. See you soon!